David here from figbootonpens. Today we're going to take a look at two pens from one of my favorite manufacturers, Sailor. Sailor is a Japanese company founded in 1911, and the story behind the name goes that the founder of the company was introduced to fountain pens by a British sailor, and that's how the company got its name. There's three main pen companies in Japan. The three largest are Pilot and Platinum and Sailor. And I just think it's interesting that Sailor was founded in 1911, Pilot was founded in 1918, Platinum was founded in 1919. So they've all been around for quite some time. And within 7 years, almost 100 years ago, all of them were founded. So it was just interesting they were founded so close to each other. The Sailor pens we're going to look at today are the Professional Gear and the Professional Gear 2. The names of these pens are often shorted to just Pro Gear, and the Pro Gear has been around for a very long time, and the Pro Gear 2 was introduced at the end of 2014, I believe. When it was launched in Japan, the Pro Gear 2 was originally called the Pro Gear Sigma, and it was rebranded the Pro Gear 2 for the international market. So you still might find references to the Sigma name or the Sigma symbol if purchasing this pen from a Japanese retailer. So first, I'll go over the parts and the features of the original Professional Gear, then we'll look at what's different about the Pro Gear 2. I'll talk about my likes and dislikes for both, show some measurements, and then we'll provide a writing sample. So I purchased these pens about 6 months apart, but they arrived in identical packaging. And this is the box right here. And take it out of the sleeve. And whoops, inside, my Pro Gear 2 actually came with an extra Sailor converter, which was nice to have. Underneath we have a couple extra proprietary Sailor cartridges, and then we have some instructions in Japanese. So here is the Professional Gear. And that both this and the Pro Gear 2 that we're going to take a look at are made out of a shiny black resin, and they come in both gold and silver accented versions. And then they also have something called a Rialo version, which has a piston filler. So both of the pens that I have are the silver versions. So on the finial is the Anchor logo. You can see that we have the Anchor logo here on the finial, and that on the Pro Gear it has a bit of an aged look to it that I like. Then there is a thin silver ring, and then on the other side of the ring is the clip, which is actually separate for the ring. They're not just the same piece. So the clip has a bit of a stair-step pattern to it. You can kind of see it has a little bit of a stair-step thing going on there, which I do like. And it does have a decent amount of give. There's no problems with that. There is another thin silver band, and then there is the main band, which actually says Sailor Japan, founded 1911, and some very nice lettering. Then there is a step down to the barrel, which is straight, and then it tapers slightly. Then there is another thin silver band, and then a short piece here at the end of the barrel. And then the end is just flat. So the cap screws off, and the section has a very small taper, and then a very small slight little flare at the end. The threads are very smooth, and so if you rest your grip on them, there's no issue at all. There is a little silver band right here at the end of the section, and when you unscrew the barrel, you can see that it's actually part of the metal portion here. So these pens can either accept Sailor cartridges, or as you see here, it can accept a Sailor converter. The Sailor cartridges and converters are proprietary. You can see here a Sailor converter compared to a standard international converter. You can see how the Sailor has a big fat hole to let lots of ink through. With that in mind, you should be careful pulling out a converter from this pen, especially if it contains any ink. It would be very easy for it to spill out. The nib on the Pro Gear is outstanding. It's what they call, or at least mine is, a hard medium nib, and it's definitely a Japanese medium, which is more like a Western fine, but it's not toothy at all. It's decently smooth and has a good amount of what I call good feedback. The nib is beautiful, as you can see here. Very nice gold trim. It's a 21 karat gold nib with the 1911, their founding year, engraved on the logo, and the Anchor logo engraved as well. I really like the looks of Sailor nibs, and I love the way they write as well. Here's a picture of the feed as well. The pen can be posted, and it posts securely. And in my opinion, it really needs to be posted. Without the cap, the pen feels a little bit light and a little bit on the short side. And having the cap on here doesn't back weight it and just gives it a little bit more heft. So what's the difference between the Pro Gear and the Pro Gear 2? I came across 4 main differences between the two. So the first one is the clip. Here is the Pro Gear 2, and the first one is the clip. You can see it's a little bit wider, and it actually has a flare here on the end, and that also it has a stylized anchor, which in my opinion looks a little cartoonish. You can see here how they compare. I'm not a real fan of this anchor and think it looks a little bit on the silly side. And for another comparison, here is the clip on my Sailor 1911 Standard with a more traditional anchor and some texture on the clip. I kind of like that clip more. Number 2 is the Finial logo itself. The Finial anchor logo is under a small dome of transparent acrylic and has a black background rather than the aged look of the Pro Gear. And here's a picture to compare the two. The third thing is the Finial itself. You can tell here on the Pro Gear 2 that it's actually a little bit longer. And then here on the other side of the pen, on the barrel side, is the fourth thing, which is the end of the barrel is longer as well. And so between the two extensions, it adds approximately 7 millimeters in length to the Pro Gear 2. Other than the differences I detailed, from what I can tell, everything else on the pens is identical. The nibs, the barrel, the section, everything. So of the two, which do I prefer? Well, it's a tough choice. I like the additional length of the Pro Gear 2, but I prefer the clip and the Finial logo to the original Pro Gear. You know, I think in the end I like the additional length. So the Pro Gear 2 wins out, but you really can't go wrong with either of these pens. In a perfect world, I'd take the size of the Pro Gear 2 and the Finial logo from the Pro Gear and the clip from my 1911 Standard. So in my opinion, that would make the perfect Pro Gear. So are you listening, Sailor? There you have an idea for the Pro Gear 3. So, okay, it's time for some measurements, and then we'll do a writing sample. Here we have the writing sample for the Sailor Professional Gear. So we have the Sailor Professional Gear and Pro Gear 2. Also known as the Sigma or the Sigma sign. And the ink we have here is Levenger Pomegranate. And it comes in this very cool bottle. I like this bottle a lot. I think it looks really nice. And the pomegranate is a nice deep red, kind of similar to the Private Reserve Black Cherry, kind of in that same family, but so far it's an ink that I like a lot. So since the Pro Gear and the Pro Gear 2 are virtually identical when it comes to the nib and everything else, other than the things that I pointed out, that I'm just going to use the Pro Gear 2 as for the writing sample. Lazy Dog. This is a 21 karat gold nib, and you can get a decent amount of flex out of here and a line variation, especially for a fine nib. You can see with just very little pressure, it's not much, but then increasing it, you can get a significant amount. Just a tiny bit of railroading there. And I'd say that this is a little bit on the medium side as far as wetness goes. And in regard to reverse writing, it's actually very pleasant. It's not that scratchy, and it lays down a nice extra fine line. As far as fast writing goes, there's no issue whatsoever. So, the Sailor Professional Gear and the Sailor Professional Gear 2, both are really solid pens in my opinion, with fantastic nibs, which provide a very pleasurable writing experience. I don't feel that you would be disappointed if you picked up either of these pens. So thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.